Hi, Brian. This is Brian Lotzbaum, and he is a Senior Business Development Manager at Samsung SmartThings, where his primary focus is developing strategic partnerships with energy companies where the SmartThings platform can deliver value. Before joining SmartThings, Brian worked with National Grid. So we can continue that conversation of energy providers. And he worked in the corporate venture capital arm of National Grid, where they invested in startups and integrated these emerging technologies into utility core business activities to create meaningful business impact. So thanks, Brian, for being here. And congratulations for SmartThings being the first solution to be certified. All right, well, why don't we start by telling the audience about SmartThings maybe and its relationship to energy management?
I feel like Josh did a lot of the heavy lifting, so maybe a lot of reiteration here. But so SmartThings, so we're an IoT platform designed to connect and control all the devices in the user's home. And a little bit of brief history. So we were acquired by Samsung in 2014. And ever since then, there's kind of been an emphasis on really improving our customer experience. And what I mean by that is integrating with as many third-party or non-Samsung devices as we could. You think of a customer journey where they log on to the app. They want to be able to connect all the devices in their home, not just Samsung devices. So as Josh mentioned, we've integrated with over 3,000 smart devices to this point. And so it created this large ecosystem on one side. And then we have the existing Samsung ecosystem on the other side, where I joined about a year ago, and a stat that surprised me was there's at least one Samsung device or appliance in 71% of US households. So this outside ecosystem, along with kind of our existing Samsung footprint, really, we feel like we sets us up for success as far as having an impact on the home and energy management. And so along with that, with some of our capabilities that we have, Josh mentioned, being able to surface energy data to the app, having a bunch of customizations, notifications, alerts to make energy education as digestible as possible for the user, to really help them take those manageable steps to reduce their energy bill. And then alongside, we have automations, things like AI energy savings mode, home and away mode, demand response, to really, our heaven state is kind of that set it and forget it method, where a user onboards a device. All they need to do is toggle on which automations they want to apply. And then they don't have to look at it, and they can if they want to, and kind of see at a daily, weekly, monthly level, what they're saving based on those automations. So a little bit of a long-winded answer, but kind of gives a little bit of background of where we've come from and how we think we're unique in the space.
Okay, and so tell me a little bit about why you're here. So why did Samsung and SmartThings decide to get Energy Star certified?
Yeah, I think to me the answer is threefold, and first is kind of that brand alignment. I think Samsung sees itself as a leader in a number of spaces, and sustainability has always been kind of a top priority for them. You think every year they come out with newer appliances that are more energy efficient past years, and actually all new appliances from Samsung come pre-integrated with SmartThings. So there's been a real concerted effort to kind of make SmartThings the brains behind the operation of all those devices. So it really only made sense as far as brand alignment, wanting to be a leader in the space to try to get some SHEMS certification. And then the second reason is selfish on my part, where it really makes my job easier as far as giving myself a competitive advantage when we go into meetings with partners or things of that sort. SmartThings, it's been around for a while, but it's only been kind of the past couple of years where there's been a strong push towards SmartThings Energy. And so as a quote unquote unproven technology to entities like utility commissions as far as energy savings, it's super important to have some sort of credibility when you walk into the room, as far as having that Energy Star backing. So as Josh mentioned, the Southern Company partnership is huge for us, and the certification has unlocked a number of other partnerships that we've had. And then third is, being a consumer-facing brand, building that customer trust is huge. And obviously, we realize that some consumers will make choices or choose products based on if products are Energy Star certified, and hopefully that leads to more downloads. That'd be great. But more importantly, as a brand that kind of advertises, hey, we're able to connect and control all the devices in your home, having some sort of backing of customer trust of, hey, we're going to be ethical and responsible with the devices that you connect, and the data that we have is super important. So a lot of reasons why we did pursue the certification, but it's been fruitful ever since.
So it's fair to say that it's helping you reach some of your business objectives on the energy side. So do you have any advice for other solutions providers exploring Energy Star certification?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to look at it less of like a, hey, this is a great stamp of approval and more of a long-term investment into your product. We've had conversations with Taylor and team about new regulations, standards, and energy efficient equipment kind of coming down the line. And it's really helped us kind of build out our product roadmap and features within the app to really improve the experience for a user, one on kind of the customer experience side, but also kind of, staying ahead of the curve, trying to remain a leader in the space in SHEMS, and really trying to future-proof the app and innovate within. So kind of, I would just say, it is nice to have the certification. Obviously, it's unlocked a lot of partners, but looking at it more towards a real investment in your technology.
How about, would you have any messages for the utilities in the room about as they're thinking about smart?
Yeah, so much. Um, I'm biased just because, I work for a consumer-facing platform, but I do think that consumers, if they do take small, manageable steps, really hold the keys to unlocking, a large amount of energy savings. And, I look towards our Southern Company partnership as one of the first iterations where you see, big tech and utilities working together. And I think it's super important for these type of partnerships to happen to really kind of future-proof the business or disrupt the industry. Um, you look at these big tech companies like a Samsung and Apple or Google, they've always been really good at consumer engagement. So how do we utilize those resources and that expertise to kind of steer those eyeballs and meet the consumer where they are, as you mentioned, um, to energy education so they can kind of take those manageable steps. So I think these type of partnerships, again, I'm biased, but are super important to kind of driving change in the industry. But at the same time, as Josh mentioned, these are two very distinct industries working together. I can certainly appreciate. I work for a utility for 6 years, so I can appreciate the methodical, careful nature of applying technology solutions. But now working for a tech company, I can also understand kind of expectations from leadership and executives as far as, fast revenue, fast results, understanding kind of the full scale of an opportunity very quickly. So I think it's super important to kind of align early on in these type of partnerships on where each party is coming from and how you can kind of come to compromise, if you will, as saying, hey, we know this pilot's going to take a year or 2 years, but let's talk about the full scale of the opportunity if it does prove successful. Are there other programs that are already in flight that we can provide value to? Are there other areas of revenue along the way that we can kind of keep everyone happy and excited and engaged and resources allocated? So I think those types of conversations are super important. And then Josh touched on it earlier, kind of the data aspect where these are two very distinct industries, but something that we have in common is our care for the customer and our care for customer data and security and privacy. So again, aligning very early on data sharing agreements, things like that. What is needed to kind of prove your case to a public utility commission. What are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? What are some compromises? Because again, we do feel we're kind of setting the standard for these kind of future partnerships. So went in kind of a little bit of a rabbit hole and lessons learned there, but I do think that these kind of each hurdle that we kind of get through, it feels like we're making progress towards innovating and disrupting the industry. So.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting also because Energy Star traditionally has been so focused on product companies, right? And product certification and product efficiency. We talk about these platforms, we're talking about now new types of providers as well, applications, smart things specifically within Samsung, right? So we're not talking necessarily to people building the products, but more the applications themselves. And culturally, all three are different, right? So now we have like an interaction now between platforms and the federal government and appliances. It's a new ecosystem that requires has probably a lot of cultural differences, right? A lot of interoperability maybe challenges and I think that's also part of the reason the working group is so important, and to get the feedback from everybody here. And it's one of the reasons I was asking, sort of to get a little feeling for who's in the audience, because I think to move this type of innovative technologies forward, we've seen that it works, right? We saw 2 use cases of demand savings, but to how do we make it happen? How do we build the business case internally for something that feels very edgy, right? Like smart home is like a really edgy thing, and the energy industry is generally really conservative area. So how do we like blend these and really get those KPIs and the data to validate these types of solutions, so we can actually see them in market and give them the same credibility and see long-term success from them? Does anybody else have any questions for Brian? Or anybody on the phone? Oh, we have a question. Oh, we have a question in here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, and I'm sure you're aware, there are a couple of different efforts going on to create interoperability standards for smart home device connectivity. And I'm interested to know which of those Samsung is involved with and why you've chosen those.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to defer to some of the experts on the Samsung side. So I'm primarily focused on kind of the SmartThings efforts right now. I know we have kind of government relations teams that have been working closely on that side, but yeah, that's I'll come back to you. Sorry. Matter, not too familiar.
Did you say there was a question on the phone?
Yeah, so this was from a little bit ago, but someone was curious to know if the utilities are using device-level data for consumption analysis and how accurate it is. Can it be used to validate TRM assumptions like plug load control? And they also mentioned they see some challenges across multi-manufacturer and what consumptions are actually being measured versus advertised.
Yeah, sorry, what was the first part of the question? As far as yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say for our pilot that we're looking at all sorts of types of data and devices that are connected. Specifically to SmartThings itself, we've been looking at several use cases as far as disaggregating data and devices on the device level. So I think it's important to the utility and to us as a whole is kind of identifying what are the largest loads in the home and how they can have the greatest impact.
Yeah, and I'd say one of the benefits to the SHEMS platform in particular is the device level data. A lot of utilities, and I'm going to turn this to Josh in a second for the TRM question, but a lot of utilities use AI-based disaggregation, which is not exact, right? It's an algorithm that's forecasting, but the device level data at the smart home level provides real-time disaggregation.
There's one more piece of that answer. Energy Star connected devices in general are required to report data, energy consumption data. However, they are not required to report measured energy consumption data. It can be estimated from what's on. And that's true for the things that are part of the SHEMS as well. And we did that basically because it's tough for manufacturers to report measured data in a lot of cases. And if they do, then there's a whole question of how accurate is that data and blah, blah, blah. So we did estimates with the idea that having an estimate that's accurate within 10%, say, would be very helpful, if nothing else, for informing disaggregation. So to the question of, does your refrigerator need replacement? Well, if you could actually know for sure when it turned on and off and use that to power your smart meter disaggregation, you can get much more accurate results.
Thank you. And do either of the utilities or any of the utilities in the room want to speak to the TRM piece?
I can kind of, I guess, also speak to that point, just because I'm a SmartThings user. Right now, we're still in the early stages of incorporating meters into these devices. So a lot of the devices we have to estimate. But I think we're going to see a huge proliferation of meters and submeters within these devices where we will be able to know exactly with meter grade level data, how much load is being saved or shifted or demand or electricity, I should say, since this isn't all a utility group. And so for DR, for demand response management, I would say we would have to look at historical data and determine, looking at load shapes, how much was shifted. We couldn't really do that based on the meters on the devices themselves.
Brian, just to clarify, SmartThings, when SmartThings is paired with SmartThings devices, you have exact energy use, right, at the device level. So it's pretty exact. Okay. Was there another question? Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience? Any last words?
No, I would just say we do have a tablet, and I would love to show a demo of SmartThings if anyone is interested in kind of the user experience. So time afterwards.
Yes, and I will hang around for a little bit. Abby, would you be around for a couple minutes to answer any questions? Okay, so I'm going to thank everybody for staying. I know it's been, a long afternoon, and I appreciate y'all being here. We're going to be around, so please keep talking, and I encourage you to continue joining the roundtable and participating in the program. Thank you.